god, it is hot, guys. It's like 40 degrees outside, I think. Oh, and I can't turn the fan on during this video because you can't hear me talk. Like, literally, I'm sweating. Like, it's like someone dumped water on me. You can do it, Azren. Come on. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Azren, the language nerd here. Hope you are doing very, very well. Welcome to another episode of Ask the Language Nerd. This is the show where I take a lot of your guys' questions from a variety of different social media platforms and I answer them in video form. If you ever want to submit something for the show, you are welcome to do so. I'm going to put all of my different social media accounts on the screen right now. And yeah, you can hit me up on any one of those accounts. Alright, this question we have here is, Azren, how do you figure out what your biggest language weaknesses are? Do you just go back to the basics when you're unsure? In my perspective, one of the best ways to figure out your weaknesses is to put yourself in like a challenging situation. I'll give you an example. Roughly maybe 2 years ago, I had found somebody on italki.com and I had asked them to, hey, like, can we talk on Skype in Mandarin so that I can get some practice? The guy said yes, and we started to talk. Now, as we're talking, this guy asked me like, hey, what do you do for work? And in that moment, I realized that, wow, I have no idea how to explain this. At the time, I was running a window cleaning business, and I was like, I don't know how to say windows, I don't know how to say cleaning, I don't know how to say business, I don't know like any of the words required to explain what I do for work in Mandarin. So that experience of talking to someone, which at the time was very difficult for me, it revealed to me the fact that I did not have the knowledge or the skill or the practice to actually explain to someone in clear terms what I did for work. And that showed me like, hey, this is a weakness and this is something I seriously need to improve on. So whether it's, you find an exchange partner and you talk to them and challenge yourself that way, whether you try and challenge yourself by reading like a book that is harder than normal, whether it's by getting a more advanced textbook, whether it's by like listening to maybe some faster songs in the language, whatever it is, right? Whatever's going to challenge you, it's going to depend on the person. But you need to put yourself in some more challenging scenarios to reveal the things that you are not necessarily the greatest at. Next question we have is, Azren, do you recommend using a grammar book when learning a language? I think my overall answer to this question is yes, comma, it depends and need to be a little bit careful. For example, if you are a language teacher, like, you can use a textbook, it's really good, but you can't just follow the textbook. You can't literally just go page by page by page by page and read the textbook to your students. It's just not gonna work. It's going to be way too boring and not effective. Like, you're gonna need to use that textbook as a reference material, and basically from the reference material, try and make it more interesting. Try and build on that textbook. Try and use it as a resource and not the only thing that you're doing in that class. On the language learner side of things, I think it's similar. Like, you can't, using the textbook is not going to be enough. Like, it's going to only get you so far. Like, maybe it's going to teach you the grammar, but it's not going to make you speak. Or maybe it's going to teach you like blah, 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 reading and writing, but it's not going to make you push the listening comprehension. Or like, maybe it's going to teach you a specific dialect, but you're not going to be used to another dialect. So you need to be using, in my perspective, like a variety of different resources, not just one grammar book. And by the way, that applies for not just grammar books, but anything. Like, using just one resource, in my perspective, is actually not the best strategy. It is a much better idea to have a couple of different resources because you will pull different things from different resources. Next question we have is, Azren, what are the biggest difficulties you face when you're teaching someone online versus teaching in person? Also, part 2 of this question is, Azren, how do you accept payment and how do you actually pay teachers when you're taking lessons online? The payment question is really easy. If they're in Canada, I'll just do like a bank transfer, like an Interact transfer. If you're Canadian, you know what that is. If you're international, like things like PayPal is really, really convenient. In terms of like the biggest challenges for teaching online, I think it's the fact that when you teach online, you can only use digital resources. Like, it'd be very difficult if I was teaching online to take out like a backpack like this one, pull some like physical resources out and use them. It's a lot difficult to do that through the internet, through the computer, versus when you're in person, I can use like physical resources, but I can also pull out digital ones. Like, I have access to both, versus online you don't. So I think that's kind of the biggest challenge, which is why my personal preference, when possible, is to actually teach in person, because there's just more that you can actually accomplish and more that you can do. Next question we have is, Azren, I recently have been assigned to teach an English poetry class, but I don't know how to do that in an interesting and engaging way. What do you recommend? I gotta start with this. I've never taught an English poetry class in my life, but I'll give you a couple of general things that come to mind. I think number one, games tend to be really good. Playing games is good. So if you go on like Pinterest, for example, I know Pinterest has lots and lots and lots of teaching resources and teaching games for you to play in class. I think a big picture thing to think about as well is just the demographic of who you're teaching. So think about their age, their interests, what they like, what they don't like, their gender. Think about how many people are you teaching. Is it 20 people? Is it 30? Is it one-on-one? I think there's a lot of things to think about there as well, because depending on the demographic, what's going to interest them is very different. For example, if you have a, I don't know, like a 10-year-old student versus versus 20, grade 12 students, we have a very different dynamics, and you will have to approach things in a very different way. So I guess based on the information you've given me, that's probably the best I can say. And based on the fact that I have limited experience teaching English poetry, I think that's kind of the best I can really give you here. Next one we have is, Azren, is it normal to get married young in India? Yeah, this is a good question. I posted something on Instagram about a marriage I went to, which is where this question is coming from. It was like a direct message. But yeah, basically in India, getting married younger is pretty common. Like, I'm 25 years old right now as I'm making this video, and it's funny, like a lot of the Indian people I meet are like, oh, are you married yet? Oh, you're 25. Are you dating? Are you, like, what's going on? What's your marriage situation? What's the relationship situation? And they're always really surprised when I tell them things like, yeah, I'm not even in a serious relationship right now, like no relationship. Like, people are always surprised to hear it. And then they get even more surprised where I say things like, yeah, I'm not really planning on marriage till like past the age of 30. Like, I've got time here, right? And I don't fully know, I mean, I have some guesses as to where that stems from. My number one guess is like life expectancy. Like, I wonder if this, I might be wrong on this, I'm just guessing, but I wonder if this belief stems from, in the past where life expectancy was like 60 or 70 or whatever, something like that, or 50. So all of a sudden, if you're not married by 30, 31, 32 or whatever, you're like 50% or more through your life. But nowadays, like, people are living longer, so all of a sudden, for me, when I think 30, 31, 32, 33, I feel like that's really young. I feel like assuming there's no freak accidents, like, I'm probably going to live another 50, 60, 70, 80 years after that, if that makes sense. So, that's kind of where my head goes. But yes, in India, it is very common to get married a little bit younger than maybe, some people in North America or other parts of the world. Next question we have is, Azren, what kind of tutor do you think is the most effective? How can you tell a good teacher from someone who actually can't help you out? Like, what do you expect from the person who's teaching you a brand new language? There's a lot to think about. I think you need to try out a lot of different tutors if possible, because, some tutors are really good, but their teaching style is not going to match with your learning style. I think as well, when it comes to good tutors, they need to be someone who can actually make it interesting. Like, I mean, and interesting is like a subjective thing. It's going to something that is interesting for me might not be interesting for you. So I think this goes back to what I said at first, is trying out a couple of different tutors to make sure that they can actually, that you vibe with them and that you get along and that how they're teaching matches what you want, if that makes sense. And lastly, and probably the most important, is you need to make sure that they're competent. I've worked with teachers in the past where I thought they're like really competent at first, but after like 2-3 lessons when I was learning things and I was talking to other people about what I was learning, the other people I was talking to sometimes would start saying like, Azren, that's actually not true, like that's wrong, or this is incorrect. Or sometimes I would look online about things I learned in class just out of curiosity, and I would learn that the things that my teacher told me were just wrong, or they're like 50% wrong, or they weren't the real answer, like they actually give me something that wasn't true. So I think the competency also plays another big role, and at the end of the day, you're just going to discover that pretty quickly. I think it shouldn't take you too long to figure that out, but you definitely won't know before trying lessons with the tutor, if that makes sense. Like, you're probably gonna have to do a couple of lessons before you really get that knowledge, but Yeah, I hope that helps you. Well, everyone, we'll wrap the video up there. It is very hot in this room. I'm looking forward to turning on this fan. And, yeah, see you later. Bye for now.